Hi guys, I'm Dr. Beal.
And I'm Dr. Chip.
And we are veterinarians. Start over.
And we are father and son.
I'm the older, wiser one.
Oh, and I'm the younger, hipper one.
Right. I'm certainly the better looking one.
All right. Well, we're running a veterinary hospital together.
And we love hanging out as family together.
And we are best friends. Usually.
Yeah, right, usually. But mostly we have lots of fun together caring for animals.
Well, most of the time it's fun working with you, Dad.
We really do a lot of things together.
That is true. I have pets at home.
And I have pets at home too. Pets that can be a challenge, both behaviorally and medically. That is why we decided to do a podcast together about the realities of pet care.
Called Vets Talk Pets.
It's a place where we will share tips, tricks, and cutting-edge science about pet care.
And maybe a little family stuff too.
So if you want help with all things pet care,
join us as Vets Talk Pets.
Here we go.
All right. Well, welcome back to Vets Talk Pets. And today we have another guest with us, Dr. Perea. She is a board-certified veterinary nutritionist, and nutrition is something that we talk about multiple times a day, almost with every client. We're really excited to have her on and maybe help answer some of the common questions, things to look for in pet food.
Yeah, we're really, really excited this week. I think our listeners are going to really get a lot of pertinent information from a specialist on nutrition. So we will introduce Dr. Perea after we get done with our Cool Pets Discovery segment.
And stick around for the case of the week, as always.
Helping you enjoy your pet more. Here is Julie Beal with this week's Cool Pet Stuff Discovery.
So, Julie, what did you find for us this week?
Well, hello, Gary. I found it's really cute. It's called a snuffle mat. And I'd heard about it online.
Is that thing that's up on our porch all laid out? I wonder what that was.
It looks like it's for a baby, right? It looks like it's got.
It looks like a baby mat.
It does. So what it is they call it a snuffle mat, and it has all kinds of things sewn on it. Pockets of all kinds of shapes and forms. It's got little pieces of material coming out really thickly. And what you do is you hide treats all over this mat, and your dog snuffles in, that's the name of it, and looks for the treats. And it's fun to watch. We tried it last night, didn't we?
Yeah, it was. She took to it immediately.
Immediately.
She was amazed by it.
Right.
And she, of course, when she got her first treat out of it, then she was all about it.
Right. And dogs get bored. And puppies get bored, so this keeps them busy. Although it didn't keep her busy long enough, I have to say.
Yeah, it was fun for 5 minutes?
Yeah, but so I was thinking about that. I did it a little bit later, and I put real tiny pieces because, we could have over-treated her within
it'd be a meal.
within a second. So little small pieces all throughout this mat. It's really fun, and it was fun to watch her, and it gave her something to do.
You know what I've been noticing about this segment, these cool topics that you're coming up with and ideas? That our dog, Rosie, has a huge collection of trial things that she has done, including this snuffle mat. She's our test dog.
Yeah, she gets to try everything.
She gets to try everything. Yeah. She's a lucky dog.
So I'm going to put a picture of this on vetstalkpets.com.
Yeah.
So when you get to this episode, I think it's going to be episode 10 or 11. I'm not sure, but I'll put a picture of this and you can see what it is. As a matter of fact, we put...
Can you do a video on that or not?
Yeah, if I can post the video, I can post the video.
You can see Rosie using it.
Using it for the first time.
That'd be cool.
You can kind of get an idea. I swear babies would love this thing too. It's just really adorable and soft and fuzzy. It also has a tie on it, so you can tie it to
Rosie
a chair.
Tried to drag it off.
Yes, you can tie it to a chair so your dog or your cat can't drag it off. And we bought ours on Amazon, and there are several different kinds. This one had the highest rating. The company is called Diff Life. And it's called Diff Life Snuffle Mat Nosework Blanket. And there's different sizes that you can get to.
What was the price on that? What did we pay for that?
Well, honey, it depends what size. I think anywhere from $28 to $38.
It seems like everything that you've tested so far has been in that $20 range.
Yeah, pretty much.
So in episode 11, we're in hundreds of dollars here.
Yeah. Well, So you have to test it because you need to be
Exactly.
honest. And by the way, we don't get paid to,
No.
to say any of these things.
If
on
you're
air,
using
so-
that company name, you're just kind of doing them a favor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can get it on Amazon, and that's the discovery of the week.
We'll look forward to what you have next time. Thanks a lot, Julie.
All right, thanks.
Okay, welcome back, Julie. That was really cool. Cool information about pets. I would like to officially now introduce our guest. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sally Perea. Sally has a lot of initials after her name. If I introduce myself, it's Dr. Gary Beal, DVM. Done. When I introduce Dr. Sally Perea, it's Dr. Sally Perea, DVM, MS, and Diplomat, ACVN. So that means that she did everything that I did as a DVM, and then she continued on and got a master's degree in veterinary nutrition. And then after that, she became a diplomat of the American College of Veterinary Nutrition, which means she really likes school. And I'm sure she had a lot of student debt after all that. But I know for sure that she's doing what she wants to do, and we're going to have her tell you about that. She looks like she did all of this at a really prestigious veterinary institution called University of California at Davis. She actually was a professor there for a while. But then after that, she went out into industry, which is a category of veterinary medicine that myself, I just dogs and cats. That's what I do. And that's what people think of with veterinarians. There are other occupations and that you can do as a veterinarian. And Dr. Sally is now currently working with a dog food company called Royal Canin. She's in research and development with them. At this point, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sally and start with some questions, if you don't mind.
I have a question first. Yeah. While we're doing the introduction, do you know how many board-certified veterinary nutritionists there are in the States?
First of all, thanks for having me on and for the nice introduction. Yeah, the American College of Veterinary Nutrition is a relatively small college. It was, I think right now, actually, I'm our current ACVN secretary. And we have to keep record of all of our members. And we just had an election, so I know that we specifically have 81 eligible voting members.
Okay.
We have near 96 total members. That would include members that are retired and have emeritus status, as well as some honorary diplomats. So pretty small when you think about, I don't know how many internal medicine specialists or surgeons, dermatologists. Mm-hmm. It's quite high compared to that.
Okay, well, cool. That's one. I know it's very, very small, so I just wanted to know from my own knowledge. We've kept this podcast very, I don't know how to say it. I don't know, non-scientific is the right word, but we're just really trying to reach people with like the main pet questions, and pet food is something that I talk about at least 2-3 times a day on a normal day.
People don't want to hear about the pathophysiology of this disease or the life cycle of this parasite. They just want to know how it affects their pet. Mm-hmm. So I think that can apply with nutrition too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the main question I get, it's usually the new pet owners, like, what do I feed my pet? And that sounds kind of broad, but with that question, what are like 3 main things a pet parent should look for when picking a pet food? If you can even do that.
It's a really good question. I think when we're talking about recommending a specific food for a pet who has a medical condition, it makes the question a lot easier.
Yes.
You're talking about very specific needs. But when you're talking about a healthy pet, there's a lot of right answers. There's not a specific pet food out there that is just the one and only. And I think maybe the one thing to look for is if a company or product is claiming that it's the one and only way to go, then that's probably a red flag. But there's a lot of variety out there. There's a few things that we talk about to kind of look for. If you're looking at the label and you want to first know if it's the appropriate product for your pet's life stage. So life stage just meaning, do you have a puppy? Do you have an adult? And those are really the two main categories. And then I guess the third would be if you have a pet that is a breeding animal, still having babies of their own. Yeah. But we'll at nutrient requirements for cats and dogs. There's two kind of categories that you could look out for. Just if you have a puppy or a kitten, you would want to just check that AAFCO feeding statement. So a lot of people will hear about AAFCO. It's a nutritional adequacy statement. And AAFCO stands for the Association of American Feed Control Officials. But you can just go by AAFCO. But they have nutrient guidelines for pet food companies that to follow to make sure it's nutritionally adequate for either growth or for adult maintenance. And then the other claim could be all life stages. So that could cover those reproducing animals as well. And when you look at that statement, they can validate kind of that nutritional adequacy two ways. One is by meeting the nutritional requirements that are set. And that would just mean that the diet on paper meets all of those nutritional needs. It can also have a feeding statement saying that cat food XYZ has gone through AAFCO feeding trials for nutritional adequacy for adult maintenance. I would, in a way, say it's not the one thing to look for, but it's one thing that you can check and see. Just kind of your knowledge. Has it just been formulated on paper or has it gone through a feeding trial?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but I remember in school hearing a story about a product, and maybe it was in Europe. I don't exactly know for sure, but it did meet all those requirements in the database or on paper, but it ended up not being compatible and did affect some dogs' lives. Is that?
Yeah, and that's having a feeding study and check that it's actually been fed to pets. There's guidelines from AAFCO on measurements that they need to check over the feeding period, checking blood work, making sure that all of the animals stay healthy. The analogy I had heard is, you could formulate something on paper and it could just have a terrible digestibility. There are limitations to AAFCO feeding trials too, because they're usually relatively short term. So kind of depending on the company, I think one other thing you could look for is if they have just formulated it, you could always call the company and ask if they've done any studies on their food. Do they do digestibility studies or urinary tract studies, other types of research? So I guess this is starting to get into some of the nuances. So I think the most important thing is just to make sure you pick the formula that's appropriate for the life stage of your pet.
Can I, if I could ask a question, and it's not going to be a long question, it's going to be 2 words, and then you can just take off with it because you'll know exactly where I'm going. You ready? Grain free.
Yeah, and I think like the original question, it was like, what should you be looking for? And I mean, nutritional adequacy is the main one, but then you've got all these other choices, and it's about variety and ingredients and kind of preference and what you're looking for. So grain-free is really just a claim on a back, meaning that there's no ingredients in there that are grain ingredients. It doesn't tell you anything about how much protein, fat, or carbohydrate. I think a lot of early grain-free diets were lower in carbohydrate. But really, if I see grain-free, that basically tells me that it's not going to have, rice, wheat, corn, some of the common grains that you'll see in pet food, as barley, sorghum. So it has to be made with something that's going to provide that carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And so that would be probably potatoes, peas, lentils. As the grain-free market has expanded, we've seen some other kind of more interesting things come in, like tapioca, maybe even chickpeas or garbanzo beans. So basically anything that's not a grain that just kind of puts you towards your potatoes or your legumes. And those diets were really started as veterinary diets. Initially, the first grain-free diets were designed for pets that had food allergies or some sort of suspected adverse response to food, either with itchy skin or having diarrhea. So veterinarians would want to do an elimination diet trial. With the original grain-free diets weren't actually looking for something that was grain-free necessarily. They were just looking for something uncommon. And potatoes were usually that choice. A lot of times we'll see, trends that might start on the veterinary side get carried over to over-the-counter products. So there was really no reason that a healthy pet product couldn't be formulated similarly. So I think we see like two categories in the marketplace now, grain-free and limited ingredient diets. So it's like you go to the pet store and you're looking at the shelf. Now those have kind of become almost two different aisles. You've got your grain-free that's got lots of ingredients, minus the grains, but it could have peas and lentils and potatoes and tapioca all in one product. So that definitely wouldn't be the one you'd want to pick if you were trying to limit the exposure of ingredients, if you're trying to rule out a food allergy. But then there's some of those limited ingredient diets that just have hopefully like one, maybe two carbohydrate sources or protein sources. It's really just a trend in the market that got started with a true need to look at eliminating common ingredients. And then it just kind of spilled over into the marketplace where somebody made a grain-free. And anytime you have a product out there that says no grains, then people start to think, if it doesn't have grain, there must be something wrong with grain that I would want to not have it.
Yeah.
So I always kind of call it this like no cycle, because I think after grain-free diets got started, then I saw products that said no potato. So essentially potatoes were bad.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get locked into a corner where, there's, the next thing was no chicken. Yeah.
Which I would be like, I am more interested in what is the protein. If I'm talking about food allergies, people will want to bring up grain-free a lot in those conversations. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I kind of more concerned what is the protein and what can we try to, with a prescription diet.
Right. And that's a good point too. Some of the limited ingredient diets, the first ones out there in the market was lamb and rice. You saw because lamb was pretty uncommon and rice wasn't necessarily that uncommon, but it's pretty well tolerated. So there's not a lot of food allergy reported around rice. But then as a veterinarian and you're kind of looking at the diet history, pretty soon lamb was no longer unique. But and a lot of the products in the market now, I think they've gone very far away from that original heritage of being a single protein that was unique and a single carb that was unique, just to kind of having this claim of around no grain. So I think the origin was need for something unique for animals that might have food allergies. And then now it's just become kind of a trend, probably similar to gluten-free on the human side. There's probably some pets that could benefit, but the formula you might find on the shelf that's got 50 ingredients isn't going to be the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes ingredients like corn or wheat get a bad name. They no nutritional justification behind it. I mean, corn and wheat are very good, highly digestible carbohydrate sources, probably more digestible and easier for the animal to digest than something like a lentil or a pea.
I believe that's true. Yeah.
There's actually probably lots of reasons you might want to pick something like rice over chickpeas.
Exactly.
But when I was a veterinary nutritionist in the clinics and I did a lot of home cooked diets, I would be trying some of these novel ingredients like quinoa or unique grains. And I started going back to rice because I found that some of my patients just weren't digesting some of those ingredients very well. So there's really nothing wrong with grain-free diets, though. That said, there has been the recent scare of some dogs on some grain-free diets that have developed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And we still don't understand why that's happening. So, if you do have a larger breed dog or a dog at risk, is that something that your guys are getting questions about? in terms of grain-free?
Yeah, mostly I'm getting questions. It's really not questions. It's statements from the new puppies that they come in, and the pet parent is just thrilled when we ask them what they feed, and they're just really proud of the fact, we're feeding a grain-free diet, and they think that's just it. I think that mostly I'm seeing the cardiomyopathy or the heart problem issues is in my journals, in my literature. I'm not sure that's really out to the public all that much yet. I don't have any clients asking me any questions about that yet, but I'm aware of it and ready for those questions. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we still don't really know a lot. There was some reports of dogs getting hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, but they haven't been able to really pinpoint why. Most of them are not low in taurine, which was the first kind of thing to look at, because there had been some reports of dogs like way back who had a similar heart condition, or actually the same heart condition when they were on lamb and rice diets, and it came back to the origin of having low taurine in their blood. But most of these dogs have normal taurine, so we're not even sure what's causing it, but they are seeing it reported.
The cases that I've seen is when they take them off of the grain-free diet and they do their echocardiograms and tests on their hearts, that it comes back after you feed a more well-rounded diet.
Yeah, so that's always the other thing to keep in mind. There's something nice about feeding a food that's been fed for years, or ingredients. I think everybody's always looking for the new thing. And
exactly.
If you're a pet owner out there and you're looking at just a shelf and maybe the price point, it's not true that more expensive is always better, because some of those ingredients are expensive for the manufacturer to put in the food.
No, quinoa is definitely more expensive than rice.
Lentils. Yeah. They're going to be more expensive than corn.
Yeah.
Just like it would be more expensive for us to buy that. And it doesn't mean that that's less nutritious. It's going to drive the price up a little bit. But the price doesn't always mean that it's better, or trying to find the next new ingredient. So I think we've just seen that everybody's trying to outdo each other. You kind of down the line to start feeding ingredients that we don't have a lot of experience with. And that kind of goes back to those AFCO feeding studies. But those feeding trials are short. And so I don't think they would have picked up these problems that now are being reported in pets on these foods for, over a year. So there's always kind of the unknown.
Exactly.
Feeding something that's, your standard ingredients that we eat ourselves. Grains are definitely not bad, but if you do have a pet with allergies, I would recommend that they feed a veterinary diet, because we just know that those are going to be more controlled. They're going to be the protein source that you're actually looking for, that's unique or hydrolyzed. So,
exactly. That's a great answer to a 2-word question, grain-free. If we can actually shift gears, instead of talking about foods that companies are trying to compete for, new ideas, the next greatest thing and all that, what about clients that are trying to feed their own diets that they make at home, focused on the raw diet? How do you feel about raw diets?
Well, they're selling raw diets too. They're not just making them.
There are companies that sell, right? Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And early in my career, I was, making recipes for people so they could feed their dog a home-cooked diet. Usually it started with the need of them having a medical condition that couldn't be met by a commercial food. Usually 1, 2 or more conditions. So you could get your kidney diet or your allergy diet, but you couldn't get them together. So we do a formula. Around 2007, there was a lot of recalls, and I don't know if you guys remember about the melamine. Yeah. And that was a huge surge of people interested in home cooking. But I think one of the first ways to, quote unquote, home cook, or I say home prepared, is to try this raw food diet. And I think that is really seen as a nice way for a pet owner to have a little bit more control. Because when you see these things as like pet food recalls and the pet food's killing your pets and a lot of these scare things that are actually usually pretty isolated and well controlled, Melamine, we had problems with melamine in infant formulas. So at the time, it really was serious and a little scary. So people were home cooking or trying raw food. And I think what I like to do when I talk to pet owners that want to feed raw food is just kind of understand, where they're coming from. Like, what do they really see as the benefit? Is it, having that interaction with their pet and making the food and just the enjoyment that their pet has, and then acknowledge that is a legitimate, benefit that they experience, but then talk about some of the risks. I think with raw food, you have that exposure to potential pathogenic bacteria, not for the pet, but also for your household.
Exactly.
And then, when your pet, when it goes out the other side, through their stool, that can carry some of those pathogenic bacteria. So they've shown that if you feed raw food, you have higher shedding of salmonella in the stool, for example. And then, pets are grooming themselves, so that's coming back into their mouth. And then if they're licking you or your child or your elderly parent, that's just a risk. So I always prefer that if someone wants to home prepare, they at least cook the food to eliminate that risk. And they still want to feed raw, that they just understand that risk and put some good safety practices in place. And then the second part of that is just having a balanced diet.
That is really, really good advice. Yeah, that's great advice. Anything else that you have, Chip?
Yeah.
We could go on here all day long.
Yeah.
And maybe a last question or last part of this episode. If I could just turn this over to you for a minute and let you talk about your company, Royal Canin. Is there anything you want to talk about your company and promote yourself a little bit here?
Oh, sure. Royal Canin. I've been really happy working for them. And I didn't go into a lot of my background, but I've actually worked early in my career for a company that did Balance It. It's a supplement for home cooked diets, and then worked with a natural pet food company called Natura. So had those grain-free diets, and then I worked for the IAMS company. And I didn't actually leave any of these companies and go get a job somewhere else. It was all through sale and acquisition that I ended up kind of moving in my career. So Natura was acquired by Procter & Gamble, and it's the IAMS company and the IAMS companies. So when I landed in Mars, they've got a lot of brands. Now they've got IAMS and Nuva, but they had this company, Royal Canin. And I think just even within the company, that's seen as one of the best places to work in their pet care, pet food segment. I'm really lucky that I got a role there. Royal Canin is a French company, and they still have their headquarters there. So I work closely with my colleagues in France. But now we have a site here in Ohio that was previously an IAMS site. So I get to stay in the U.S., stay in Ohio, and work from here. But they're just really focused on the veterinary needs and individual pet needs. So it's been fun to work for a company that's focused on the health of pets. Instead of really chasing those kind of trends and ingredient trends, which I really don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's just a different mindset and kind of how you put a product together. So being a veterinarian and a veterinary nutritionist, it's been fun to work. I'm in research and development. I'm focused on gastrointestinal research. So trying to work with veterinary schools and other specialists out there that focus on gastrointestinal disease to kind of test our diets, test new diets, see how we can always improve. I think they're a great company, particularly for the veterinary diets. And all of that research that we do on animal health is just translated into the healthy pet diets as well. We have a lot of breed-specific diets and stuff like that. So it's kind of some fun products to look at if you really want to find something for your specific pet breed or breed size.
I think Royal Canin is very fortunate to have you on their staff, and I'm sure they feel that way. On these podcasts that we do, when we're done with them, we talk to the public, and they say, oh, we like this episode, we like that episode. But it seems like every single time a younger person, somebody maybe in college or even in high school, wants to know about veterinary medicine and why you became a veterinarian or how did I get into vet school or, that kind of thing. And I think they're going to see with today's episode with you on that it's not just all dogs and cats in small clinics or hospitals, veterinarians taking care of sick dogs and cats. You have taken a whole different career path. Any advice for a younger person thinking about veterinary medicine and maybe a little bit about your story about how you wanted to be a vet and how you became a nutritionist?
Yeah, I think, I've shared with you guys in the past, but my dad was a small animal, actually mixed animal practitioner.
Nice.
I grew up in northeastern California, and he saw dogs, cats, horses, eagles.
Cool.
Or more owl than hawks than eagles, but just anything that came in the door. So I just assumed that I was going to be a mixed animal vet. I grew up riding horses, so I thought at least a companion animal vet where I do dogs, cats, horses. But nutrition became an interest when I was an undergraduate. And when I was finishing, I actually did my master's degree in nutrition while I was in veterinary school. So I did this dual degree program that they were offering at that time. So kind of one thing led to the other. I always thought I would go into practice, and then I ended up coming back and doing a residency in nutrition. And then I thought, well, I probably won't go work for a company. I'll probably, stay in academia, or maybe I'll be a veterinary nutritionist at a referral practice. And then I ended up working in industry. So I think, and like I was mentioning before, I ended up going through some different companies, through sales and acquisition. So I think you can never really know where your career is going to take you. And the one nice thing about being a veterinarian is that there are a lot of options, and I could always go back into practice. It would probably take me a little while to get caught up to speed, but there's opportunities and research, either in academia or in industry. We have people in our company that really focus on scientific communication and education. So there's lots of things to do out there on the veterinary side. I think any college degree kind of gives you a good opportunity, but a degree in veterinary medicine, and there's so many different things you could do. So,
well, yeah, somebody told me one time, and I don't know if it's true or not, but the number one employer of veterinarians in the U.S. is the CDC.
What's CDC mean?
The Center for Disease Control.
Exactly.
The government.
Yeah, government.
Yeah. And I think in the veterinary nutrition field, for example, we have some diplomats that work in FDA, and then some that go into regulation. So it's kind of an interesting area. One of our diplomats does a lot of work working with AFCO. He actually represents our college, and he consults with companies about, what they can say on the pet food labels, and it's a totally different area, but it really helps to have that background as a nutritionist and a veterinarian. So, I think what I've learned, maybe the biggest takeaway is, yes, I spent a lot of time in school, but I've spent now probably more time out of school in my professional career. And that's where you really start learning. You're continuously learning. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you feel the same way, all of your experience and practice.
Absolutely.
4 years sounds like a lot of time in veterinary school, but it's pretty small once you're into your career.
Yeah,
that's true. That's really good advice. I would like to send out a heartfelt thank you for you taking your busy time to come on our podcast today. The information is going to help our pets live happier, healthier lives. I certainly encourage you to keep up your research and development. Look forward to new products coming out that will be beneficial to our pets. And if I can wrap up this segment of the podcast by just saying, God bless you, Sally Perea.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing on this podcast. I love podcasts. So
you bet. Well, thanks so much. I think at this point we're going to move on to our interesting case of the week. What do you think?
Yeah, case of the week. I felt like in the beginning I had them all, and now you have them all.
Yeah, I've got an interesting case this week, and there's a good message about it also that we can tell you to do to prevent this from happening. There's a situation in female dogs called pyometria. It's a big special word, medical word, for an infection in the uterus, and they'll get what we call a purulent vaginal discharge, another medical term for pus coming from the female parts of the dog. And it's fatal. It's lethal, untreated. And we have a dog right now that's pretty much collapsed and having trouble with this. And he's going to need all kinds of lab tests and x-rays and possibly surgery. And we can and will help and save this dog, but the owners are going to incur a lot of hassle, a lot of expense. The dog's going to have a lot of recovery and pain, and it's something that is totally preventable, and that's why it's the case of the week this week. Obviously, they're not spayed when they have this disease, or they have not had an ovarian hysterectomy. And if you have your puppies spayed when they're younger, this disease or this situation cannot happen. It's totally preventable. So the case of the week this week points to spay your female puppies, right?
Yeah.
How much do we preach that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
one of the many reasons.
Keep this case in your prayers, folks, because he's kind of in a tough case right now, but we're on it.
All right. Well, if you guys like our podcast and you want to find us, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, vetstalkpets.com, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next episode.